Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Pensado's Place. I'll tell you what we're going to do this fourth quarter. We're going to give you tools. Starting with this episode, you're going to meet a bunch of really cool companies, audio movers, GPU audio, on and on and on. And in this particular one, this one that you know is Leapwing, and one of the industry's favorites, the amazing Joe Chiccarelli. Before we get to Joe, a couple things. Now you have a chance. We're calling all sound designers, composers, producers, and creatives. This is a chance for you to show your gears. Pensado's Place is partnered with GPU Audio, Dell, NVIDIA, Mantra, and AMD to bring you the Few and the Cursed Short Film and Sound Design Challenge. Here's what you do. You create an original score sound design for one or both of the short films found at the link that you see below. You'll see it right here. And you get a chance to win some amazing prizes. Geez, Herb, what prizes can I win? Well, for the grand prize winners, one animatic and one live action, get $2,000, a Dell laptop computer, AMD Radeon Pro W6600, GPU Audio Unlimited Access, one of our new favorite companies, Plugin Boutique's Loop Masters prize pack, and a Mantra IO Oracle X. Total value about $5,500. But that's not all. 6 second place winners, 3 animatic, 3 live action. You'll win GPU Audio Unlimited Access, Plugin Boutique's Loop Master Prize Pack, Mantra IO Oracle X, and all this adds up to about $1,000. So to enter and download the assets, go to pensadosplace.magicalrealms.co. All entries have got to be in by 11:59 October 27th. You still have some time, but get popping. Show us your creativity, get it in. This is a chance for you to show past the mix, get your creativity, win some stuff. Thanks to GPU Audio for that. And in addition to that, another company that we are just super fond of is Audio Movers. Their process called Listen To is literally lossless audio streaming directly from your DAW. You can get rid of sending huge files. You can collaborate on tracks remotely. Doesn't cost you a bunch of money. You can start working on audio in real time from any DAW. It is super cool. We're gonna do a deep dive on them in the next week or so, but check out Audio Movers, check out Listen To. They're tied to Abbey Road. They are really amazing. And now, without further ado, Joe Chiccarelli is just one of the all-time favorites. 10-time Grammy and Latin Grammy award-winning producer, Tori Amos, Beck, U2, The Strokes, Elton John, White Stripes. Should I continue? I mean, Joe is not only an amazing engineer, he's also an amazing guy. And he is very selective about what he gets involved with, which is why we love our relationship with Leapwing. This is his second plugin in the Signature series. They first did something with Al Schmidt, the icon of all icons. And so for them to pick Joe to do something with tells you all about Joe and tells you all about Leapwing. So we spent a good conversation with him and Robin Reumers, the co-founder of Leapwing, and we want to bring that to you now. Enjoy. What up? For all of you guys watching, Joe's stats speak for himself. It is an amazing track record of artistry, brand standard, wins because of it, and always pushing the envelope. But one of the things that when a guy or a gal has that kind of heft, you really look at the decisions they make to put their name on things because they're careful about it. Joe has teamed up with Leapwing for a plugin, and I know that was a considered decision, Joe, right? You just don't take your skill and go anywhere.
No, absolutely. You know, Leapwing was a name that just kept coming up when I would look at new plugins. It was the stage one and the center one and the root one, and like everything I tried from this company was great. And I'd bump into friends, I'd bump into Joe Barresi or Greg Wells or people that we all know, and they'd go, "Hey, have you tried this center one plugin? You should check this out." So it became like another one that was at the top of the list. And then when I saw that Al Schmidt had done his signature line with them, I was kind of like, wow, I want to be part of this company because they're doing just high quality work.
I couldn't have said it better. And the Al imprimatur, you kind of don't need anything else. If Al said cool, we all can go cool.
Because Al hated everything. Al was so picky about everything. Thought it was junk, and if he stood by it, you were like, okay, I'll check that out. Absolutely.
But yeah, when Al was happy, he was pissed off. So so the notion that he would go that way is a really big indicator for our purposes. And then I want to get into the specifics. We found the same thing, Joe. People that we really admire and Dave really admires all kept saying the same thing about Leapwing. I've had the opportunity to work relatively close with Robin for the last couple of years, and we go back to when Robin was at SAE a million years ago.
Wow. Yeah,
and trying to do things, and he has always been consistent. So, Robin, you got this plugin, man. Tell us about it from your perspective before we hear it from Joe's.
Yeah, no, this was a great journey because it was definitely like a new challenge for us because we had done the plugin with Al, and like Al's approach was very minimalistic, and so working with Joe, who uses a lot more processing and gear, it was a very interesting challenge for us to like look at all the different bits and pieces that make up his sound. So, but yeah, the journey has been super like fun, and Joe shared like all of the things that he does, and we came to Sunset obviously to analyze everything. So yeah, it's been like a fun journey to figure it out and make a plugin that we like and that we all hope everyone will like. And
so what all does it do?
Well, what I wanted to do is something that made it easy for you to kind of get to first base. That basically, if you're struggling to get a drum sound or a bass sound or whatever, that you could pop this on and instantly you're 70% of the way there. And it really is the tools that I use. And I really did drive Robin crazy because anybody that has worked with me knows that, I try every piece of gear, and sometimes I use every piece of gear. So there's a lot of things in the chain that are doing various little things that all add up to a sound. So I wanted to give people a starting point that if they're, in their home studio trying to do drums, that there's a EQ curve, there's a saturation, there's a compression setting, there's all those building blocks to getting a great sound that sounds like a finished mixed sound all in the plugin. And at least you can really get to a place where you can put a drum kit in your mix and start to feel like, oh, I know where I'm going now. I can blend my other instruments around this. So I'm hoping that for most people, it's really something that they can rely on as a starting point when they're building a mix or tracking drums or whatever it might be. So there's drum sounds, drum presets in it, bass, guitar, piano. I mean, there's anything you need to really build a rhythm section.
Joe, am I hearing you right? It says Joe Chiccarelli vocal strip, but you can use it on anything, is what you're saying.
We're talking about two different plugins here, but okay. The Signature Series Leapwing plugin is really my sounds for a number of different instruments, and Robin can talk to the rollout of what instruments are going to be included with the first round of the plugin and how we'll roll that out. But it's really for a number of different instruments, from lead vocals and background vocals, guitars, everything you need.
when you said it's a plugin that'll help you get to first base, I wanted that during junior high. But
No, I mean, I know, like,
I probably could still use it today, actually. But
no,
um,
my first drum sounds, God, I think I often think about like the early sessions that I did. And, I wonder, like, wow, did I do such a bad job that those people like had to leave the business because my engineering skills were so bad then that, wow, I wonder what happened with those people, that they have to take a day job. Hope they don't come back and try to get me.
I think we all probably have body counts somewhere, for sure. The interesting transition, I would think, and Dave, I think you'd agree with this, for us in particular with the show is, after 550 odd episodes or whatever it is, we have seen a number of sort of paradigm shifts mentally amongst the best in the business. Mm-hmm. The Chiccarellis, the Mannies, you name it. Of course. How could I?
Sorry, I think you weren't supposed to hear that.
You just saw an esteem problem jump up. But no,
sorry, Herb. Sorry.
No, it's all good. And my point is that there has been a shift from not technology, let's do it the analog way, to begrudging, to genre specific, whether we use stuff or not use stuff. Mm-hmm. And now everybody has sort of moved forward to technology is with us. Now, how do we deal with it? How do we use technology and not let technology use us? And what's been interesting to me is that now with the contributions of people like a Joe Chiccarelli, it's making the technology more musical and smarter and not as obtrusive. So kind of what we were resisting, we actually are now able to affect in a positive way. Do you see that, Robin and Joe? Am I nuts? Does any of that make sense?
No, I think that makes perfect sense. I have always, I think when digital workstations came out in 1999, whenever first kind of grabbed onto Sound Tools, Pro Tools, I resisted for a while, and it was purely because the sonics weren't there. I just didn't think the fidelity was there. But when I saw what the technology could do, especially in terms of editing, I really had to embrace it. And my feeling has always been like, instead of fighting it, just let's help it along, let's contribute, whether it means of being a beta tester for somebody or, coming up with your own software to do the job quicker, easier, better. And I do feel that the technology is at a point now where you can't help but embrace it. It sounds great. There's no question about the fidelity now. That's not an issue anymore. It's now a question of all the things that we can do. And like you were kind of intimating, it's sort of like we kind of have to not let the technology rule us and run away with it. We have to kind of know how to use it and not abuse it and not put a timestamp on the recordings we make. We could all talk about when multi-track recording first came in and when digital delays and digital reverbs first came in, how every album had that sound to it and it was instantly time-stamped and grows thin. So I think that's the one thing we always have to look out for. But I think now there's so many tools that make it easier for you to make great sounding music. And what's important for me is that you're able to do it quickly and intuitively, because I think the last thing you want to do is stand in the way of an artist's creativity. And you want to, I was always told, you get the mics up early, you get your sounds, you get everything. So when the artist walks in the door, bang, he goes. And anything that allows somebody to walk in the door and be creative, go sit down at the drum kit, and in 5 minutes, there's a drum sound. that's really, really inspiring to people. I think they perform better as opposed to like, I need another 15 minutes. I need another. So I'm hoping that these tools really, really allow you to kind of bring something that's inspiring to the players and do it in a very, very quick way.
Mhm, mhm.
And I also wanted to add, like, something I really like with like, Joe's approach and what happened in the plugin is that, I mean, it's easy to give people a lot of access to a lot of different things. Like, you can have access to 300 compressors and 500 distortion units and so many things, but then it becomes even harder to figure out, okay, what is it that I want to use? And I really like the preset approach that like Joe came up with, of like, let's build really good starting points where, yes, you have a lot of under the hood things you can tweak, but you have a really good starting place for whatever it is you want to do. So I think that's really cool that you have
It's
that.
a super interesting point, because our good friends at the 1500 Sound Academy, Rance in particular, he talks about the way they teach. My point is that I think not only is there a use thing here in terms of the artist and how you use it and how you prepare it, I think there's an educational thing as well too. Here's my point. Rance always talks about what they want to teach is the cheat codes. How can you cut to the chase and get to a tool that you can use? Now, I think you have to know what you're doing and not just have a bunch of things you cut to and you don't understand what you're cutting to. Mm-hmm. But what you did, Joe, in my opinion, with this plugin is say, let me take some of the indecision out of this for you and get you to things that you can utilize and understand right away, which is where I think education is in our space as well too. Here's what you need to get to, and here's how and you need to understand theory, but not get so bogged down in stuff that's impractical and that you're going to end up forgetting more than you're going to use. So that's part of what's so interesting about Leapwing and Robin, because he's got a foot in both, and so to be able to go to talent and then to come up with a tool because the other thing it seems to me, you guys tell me, is this tool is good for the pro and it's good for the bedroom producer too.
Yeah, absolutely. That was kind of the biggest challenge, is finding something that allowed the user to have enough adjustability, enough tweakability, but did give you a great starting point. So the guys at Leapwing were really, really great about finding that balance where there's enough unique elements that can be adjusted to allow a user to really do his thing, but yet he's got a jumping off point that delivers a pretty legit sound, and he can tweak the taste.
From my 2 cents, music changes, obviously, and I've been through all those changes. So we went from Sinatra to Elvis, and Elvis led the sound, and you always need one guy to lead the sound into the next 10 years of what we were all doing. And then the Beatles took the place of Elvis, then Zeppelin took that place, and then the 80s was, and so our audience kind of dictates the sound. We don't really have that much control over it. But when you catch that crest of that new wave, which used to be what we called the new sound, this plugin is perfect for that. It can go any way you want it to go, and I think that's a real good way to be, guys. Robin.
Well, the other part to that is that the independent community is bigger now than what the majors are, and so you now have to approach. This is just free advice to everybody listening. And when you have a plugin company like Leapwing and a plugin modeled by Joe Chiccarelli, named after him, so forth, you don't have to be the person who's on their way to being Doja Cat or Ed Sheeran. If you're sitting in your studio in Amsterdam in the bedroom apartment, you can affect what you need to affect just like those guys. Mm-hmm. And so you don't have to have God, I wish I was. No. Get that shit and use it right now and make your shit pop. That's I mean, I say that as this, because for us it's changed too. Like, started out the show and we're Chris Lord Algae and everybody else, and then all of a sudden it's a bunch of students, and then all of a sudden, and then this big community has come together. This is a source of pride for me. So personal moment. Whenever I see the Indeed commercial that says your record company is taking off, but so is your recording engineer. Now you need Indeed to replace a national ad on recording engineers that runs on TV across the country all the time in national time slots. Not when we first started.
No,
Right.
no.
Not when we first started. So, I measure the market in a kind of probably a weird herb way, but that's saying something, that there's this thing that has happened, this shift that has happened. And so when we're speaking to bedroom people and saying you have these tools, that's what makes you competitive, not whether you have it on Drake, whether you're using it and pushing your ball forward, whatever your thing is. And Leapwing is a company, and Joe Chiccarelli and Dave Pensado and Pensado's Place are tools that you can use to do that. So, okay, I'm off my soapbox. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to do that. I'm
Yeah.
here all week.
Yeah. Thanks for calling me a tool. I like that.
First time probably you've ever been called a tool, but that's
I know. Whoa, yeah.
So Robin, where do you find this plugin? What's it priced at? Is it available? Can we do stuff with it?
Yes, it's being released on September 15th, and it's
Nice.
going to be available on our website, leapwingaudio.com.
As you know, audience, we're going to find some way to get a few of them to you in some sort of contest, somehow, some way. We'll figure it out, because we like the Oprahfication of our audience. You get a plug-in, and you get a plug-in, and you get a plug-in. But more importantly, we like to be associated with absolute geniuses like Joe. And just as a sidebar, it's one thing to be really incredible at your talent, but you also are better if you happen to also be a nice guy or a nice lady. And that's what you see in a Joe Chiccarelli. That's what you see in a
Man,
David
you're
Pensado.
kind, Herb. That's too kind.
Well,
You catch me on good days.
yeah. Now we can, we know some nasty ones. So it's not all peace and light. But this is the fun part for us about how the commitment technically is matched by the sort of commitment as a human being and trying to do something for people and the thought process that goes in. And I think that's why we kind of like to show it that way. So we know it does all kinds of stuff in the chain. We know that it makes your decision making more succinct. We know that you're going to make decisions for people, which I think is a major thing. I think, let me ask this question. Is there too much saturation? The stuff that people have thrown at them to try to figure out how to get through the path, is there sometimes too much?
That's a good question. I don't, maybe I'm not a good one to answer it, because I think I probably know how to weed out a lot of things. So I think perhaps, if you're starting out, there might be a lot of things out there. I think, even for you to decide, which workstation to start with might be a tough decision. And then from there, what plugin choices and where do you put your money? I can imagine that is indeed a tough question for somebody. I'm at a point where, I can look at what a plugin does or claims it does and say, okay, perhaps I have 4 other things that do something similar. I don't need to go there. But it might be definitely a bit overwhelming for somebody just getting started in the business.
Do you see it from your standpoint, Robin, as a teacher?
Yeah, like the fact is there's a lot of tools out there. So, like Joe said, like so many DAWs, so many different tools available. And what I see also in students starting is like everybody's now using, when they start like learning, is like they're all using already a different DAW. There's so many things out there, which could be good too, because it allows people to find their own way and their unique way of doing things and making sounds. But I would say it's definitely tough, because as you said, like a lot of students, they want to know, oh, which one should I go to? And nowadays it's not an easy answer because there's so many different great things out there.
I think today we have more tools and the best tools ever. I think when 10 or 20 years from now, they're going to look back at this time period as one of the golden ages of audio, because the tools we have, guys, you know this, are just immaculate. If you can't do something with these tools, quit, go home, live with mama. It's just amazing. And AI is creeping in to make it even better. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's so much coming down the line. When I work with a lot of different companies, when I see what's going on and what's being introduced into the technology, it's the
mind-boggling.
Going to be mind-boggling.
It's absolutely right. And my suspicion, I mean, I'm not a future caster or try to be, but it's never going to stop.
No,
right.
It's never going to stop. Like it's a constant technical evolution that we're living in the middle of, which means that restraint and vision and being able to edit and choose things and make sense and know that it's going to change again is always a constant, you know. And I think schools have to teach that way. I think you design plugins that way. I think that plugin folks have to think about it that way. So, you know, it keeps us on our toes. I mean, like we get to be in a space that is now super valuable, is utilized in a number of places beyond just hit records. You know, we did a show on sounds in hospitals at Cedars-Sinai recently.
Wow.
And Cedar, they have a sound department. Who knew?
Really? Wow.
They control the sound in the operating room. They control the sound in the hallways. And our perspective was ultrasound is used for echo and for pregnancy and for other things. If you have cataract surgery, they break up the cataracts with ultrasound. And so we wanted to approach it that way. We've done audio on wildfires because they make their own weather, they make their own sound. And so our encouragement, which is what you guys represent, is don't think about sound linearly. Think about it about where it can go. And then the very same skills you have that Robin teaches or Joe you espouse or Dave espouses can be put to use in some of those other areas, which means more jobs, more opportunity, more. So, you know, shit, and we're going to stick to that. If we're wrong, then we'll just screw up a bunch of people.
No, I don't think so. No, man, I'm always looking at like, you know, my favorite word is like next. What's next? You know, what's coming down the line?
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm going to ask the same question to both you guys. Robin, what's one feature of the new plugin that you're proud of that we can kind of tease our audience with? You're next, Joe, so think about it.
He has time to think about it. Joe, can you go first? Or?
Okay, all right. No, I'll tell you the one thing that Robin surprised me, and I didn't even know we were going to fully incorporate this in the plugin, but in a number of the different instruments, you're able to adjust the drive level, which is basically the preamp or line input gain of the analog console. So Dave, Herb, you certainly know how, you know, adjusting the trim, how hot or cold you hit a piece of gear really affects its tone. And so the drive adjustment on the plugin, to me, you can do so much with just that. Forget about the compressor, EQ, whatever. Just that alone gives you so many different color choices that when Robin first suggested putting in, I was like, okay, that could be a good thing on certain instruments. Yeah, okay. But then I started using it like on kick drum and bass and a bunch of different things. And I was like, wow, I don't even use this enough in the real world, let alone, you know, in the software world.
Yep. Wow.
So now that I had time to think about it, for me, I think it would be the EQs, because I was surprised like how musical they turned out to be. Like, you know, I really like enjoy using the EQs and like the broad strokes of them. And yeah, I was really like surprised by like having all those different EQ options, you can really like make something musical, and yeah, that I was really
Robin,
surprised.
are the EQs designed to go in and make certain sounds better? Or are they broad stroke like
There's both. There's a portion of the EQs that allows you to like fine tune each
fine tune?
frequency,
That's
and
what
then
I was looking for. Yeah.
and then there's more the broad strokes as well. So it has both.
I'm sad I asked the question, because now I'm going to be awake all night trying to get my hands on that plugin. I thought I was kind of nice with you guys.
You gotta get them to check out.
Joe, I love you. Yes.
Yes.
Plain and simple.
Plain and simple.
For the audience's benefit, this is why we want you to know about Leapwing. We have been a supporter of the company we're probably going into our third year,
Yes,
if not
yes.
more, somewhere there. And from day one, the response has always been from people that we really respect. They have really great shit.
Exactly.
And we don't need to hear more than that. We figure out what a relationship is. It's also why people matter, and it's why we try to have you introduce or have you meet Robin Reumers and so on and so forth. And then there's Joe Chiccarelli. If Joe is going to make that decision, there's not much else you do. Well, let's do two. Let's do four words, two names: Al Schmidt,
Yeah.
Joe Chiccarelli. End of story. See you later. Bye. Like there's no.
So for me to be in the same company with Al, and for me, you know, in real life in the past, to be in the same company with Al, to hang with Al. I never got to work with him because obviously we do similar things,
Right.
similar styles, but
Right.
just his outlook on things, his musicality, his love for the music, and his he just is to this day an inspiration every single day when I'm balancing things, when I'm balancing vocals or strings. I always think about Al. I've learned so much from him. So to be a part of anything that he's involved in, I'm deeply honored.
His focus was undeniable. I mean, when the big earthquake hits, if he was in the control room, you'd see a bunch of rubble and this thing sticking out. Al's still there working. He didn't hear the earthquake.
Yeah. I told his wife that I am convinced that the next morning after he passed, he and Ed Cherney had a meeting with Jesus and said, you know, you need to improve the control room here. And we're going to change up. You know, the acoustics are bad, and clearly nobody's. And they had that thing up and running the next day, and they're recording the Heavenly Angels together. Those two together, and it's amazing how them not being here. It's not something I'm ever going to be able to shake. You know. Obviously, there's a sad place, but there's just an impact place.
Yeah,
Joe, we do that with you. And Robin, you know how we feel, and Dave and I are all in 1,000%. It's so impressive. God, thank you for gracing us.
So much.
Yeah, let me add one thing to that. I don't think Joe remembers this, but when I got here in 1990, Joe was one of the very first people to give me a compliment, and that compliment kept me here, because I was scared. I was nervous. I didn't know anything about anything. I really wasn't a good engineer. I had good taste, but those compliments that you get early on from your heroes, and Joe is clearly one. Those are so important to us, Herb. You know.
Yeah, I mean, look, if we keep talking, we're going to start French kissing. So, so we need to be careful. But I would say this. Well, never mind. Ooh, Dave, never mind. That's too much information. I think I would wrap this up by saying to the audience that sometimes when you get together with your peers, and I encourage, if you're 24-year-old and you have another 24-year-old, get to know that person past texting, because someday you're going to end up in the same position and they're going to be in a big position and you're going to remember when you met, and it's going to affect your career. Have these personal relationships. And in those personal relationships, what you do is what you just saw us do, is we talk and we reflect, and yes, we go down the technical path, and yes, we go down the plugin path, but we also go into the things that inspire us and raise the bar. Right, Joe? Does that make sense?
Oh man, no, absolutely. And it really, especially like the business has grown so much smaller in the years that all of us started. It's not the record budgets are smaller, and you don't spend as much time in the studio together, and you don't share as much knowledge, and having those relationships. And even if it's you only get to see each other at NAMM show or whatever and exchange that information, then it's a blessing. It's a beautiful thing, and it's really something that we should all cherish and really work towards sharing with each other.
Yeah, and encouraging the next generation to do it.
Absolutely.
We certainly do. Well, here's the great news. His name is Dave Pensado. The Master Blaster. Joe Chiccarelli walks on water and often mixes while he's walking on water, which is an amazing feat, because there's.
And I'm going to work on mixing underwater. That's my next feat. Yeah.
Well, Leapwing's working on a plugin for that. So, and then there's Robin Reumers, the multi-talented, multi-nice guy, brilliant supporter of the arts, teacher of the arts, and creator of tools that you can use. And we're blessed to have them all on the show. So go get your Leapwing plugin. That is the Joe Chiccarelli plugin. Go to their website and get it. We're going to come up with some ways for you to get it. And we love you, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Thanks for having me.